Juliet, a beautiful brown-skinned lady with long hair, was raised in a loving home. However, she did not come from a conventional family. She was from a polygamous family, as her father had married a second wife. Her mother was the first wife and had 4 children for her father, while her stepmother had 2 children for him. Juliet had a lovely smile that radiated wherever she went. People would call her beautiful names whenever she passed, and this always made her stepmother jealous because she knew Juliet was finer than her daughters. Juliet's mother always avoided any confrontation with her mate, choosing instead to focus on ensuring her children were well taken care of. Juliet's father provided for his family and ensured they lacked nothing, but there was always an undertone of jealousy in his second wife's voice because he loved his first wife very much. Juliet was his favorite child and he had a special name for her, Pumpkin. Whenever he called her that, her face would light up with joy. Juliet was a hardworking and dedicated child who always looked for ways to contribute to the household. She was also highly intelligent and finished top of her class in school, which made her parents very proud. She had always envisioned a bright future, going to the university, finishing at the top of her class, securing a job, and then pursuing her master's degree. She had everything planned out. She wanted to be very successful before even considering marriage. She was already making plans for university when tragedy struck. One day, her father was knocked down by a moving vehicle, which cost him the use of his legs. He could no longer work at his establishment as he was immobile, and so he was relieved of his job. This job, which he had worked so hard for over the years, was the source of the income that allowed him to take care of his 2 families. Mr. Okoro was admitted to the hospital for days. Thank God he survived the accident. He was super grateful that he had already set up businesses for both of his wives so they could contribute to the household. Mama Juliet, as she was fondly called, had a big shop where she sold clothes to women and she loved her work very much. Meanwhile, Mama Kaima, her co-wife, owned a provision store where she sold foodstuff. It was Mama Kaima's duty to provide provisions for the house, while it was Mama Juliet's responsibility to ensure other necessary items were available. Their husband, on the other hand, paid the school fees and took care of the rent. This was the arrangement that had kept their home peaceful. Now, with their husband laid off due to his injury, they wondered how they would cope. When he was discharged from the hospital, they had their first family meeting. Mr. Okoro expressed heartfelt gratitude to his wives for handling the home perfectly while he was in the hospital. He then explained that since he could no longer use his legs, he would have to find another means of making money to ensure the smooth running of the home. Then he looked at Juliet, his first daughter, who was about to go to the university, and told her he would try his best to send her to school. However, if he couldn't, she should consider getting married. Mama Juliet immediately spoke up and told her husband that while he had always been the one raising the money for the children's education, they should not rush Juliet into marriage. She reminded him that Juliet had always been clear about her intentions to finish school before settling down, and they should not kill her dream. Mama Kaima then added that their husband was right. If he couldn't take care of the children's educational needs, Juliet should consider marriage. Mama Juliet snapped back, saying that if Mama Kaima wanted her own daughter to get married early, that was fine, but her own daughter would not be getting married anytime soon, and the matter should be dropped. Her husband silenced both women, saying that he had not made a final decision. Juliet, who had been listening all along, spoke up. She told her father that she understood he was speaking from a place of concern. She would try her best to raise the money for school on her own. With that, the meeting ended. That night, Juliet lay in her bed, thinking about what her father had said. She knew he loved her dearly, so she wondered what had prompted him to make such a statement. Is the accident affecting him so much? She pondered. Restless, she kept thinking, no, I can't get married. I need to go to the university. I need to finish school. get a good job, and then do my master's. Marriage will hinder so many things. Besides, I do not want to be in a polygamous marriage. I don't want to be labeled first wife or second wife. I want to be the only wife. If my mom were a big time woman, my dad wouldn't have married another woman, she thought. Determined, Juliet decided she would take on 3 jobs if necessary, even if it meant delaying school for a year. She wanted to save enough money to cover at least 2 years' tuition, since her mother and stepmother had agreed to contribute to the education of the other children. The next morning, she woke up with a plan. She decided to start a small daycare for children between the ages of 0 and 4, as many mothers wanted to return to work but had nowhere to leave their children. She would run the daycare during the day and work the night shift at a bottling company. She went to a cyber cafe, created a flyer advertising her daycare services, and distributed it to parents. She also secured a room in a large house owned by a man who was not using the space, agreeing to pay him monthly rent. Within a week, she had already secured 10 children for the daycare. The parents trusted her because she was known to be smart, dedicated, and diligent. She was thrilled that her plan was taking up so smoothly. Juliet ran the daycare with joy and dedication. With 10 children enrolled, she was able to hire an assistant, which made the job easier. At night, she worked at the bottling company. Her parents barely saw her anymore, and her mother worried about how thin she was becoming. One day, Mama Juliet told her, "My daughter, you are stressing yourself too much. You barely have time to sleep. I know your education is important to you, and I am sorry that your father and I cannot provide the life you deserve. But please don't overwork yourself." Juliet, however, was determined. She confided in her aunt, who advised her to consider marriage, but Juliet refused. "I don't want to be in a polygamous home. I want to be someone in life. I want to go to school," she told her aunt. Her aunt was impressed. "Many girls would cut corners to get where they need to be. Admire your strengths, but please don't overwork yourself," she said. Juliet continued with her plan. She ran the daycare from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., took a short rest, and then worked the night shift from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. She saved diligently, and within 3 months, she had enough money for 2 years of tuition. She applied for university entrance exam and secured admission. By the time her admission came through, nearly 8 months had passed. She had saved enough for her tuition. At this point, she decided to close her daycare, informing parents a month in advance. Her parents were overjoyed. They gave her their blessing as she set off for school with excitement. Juliet gained admission into the university in her state and was amazed by the new environment. She reminded herself while she was there to focus and remain dedicated. She went to her designated hostel, dropped her bags, and introduced herself to her roommate, getting to know them better. She was thrilled when she discovered she had been admitted to study medicine, her dream course. Filled with joy, she settled into her new life, but she remained careful about the friends she made. She only associated with like-minded individuals who shared her dedication to their studies. University life was exciting, and lectures were going smoothly. After 2 months of observing how things worked in school, Juliet decided to apply for an evening job at a cafe. The job didn't interfere with her studies and provided her with enough time to buy textbooks and take care of her feeding. She was determined not to call home for financial assistance unless it was absolutely necessary. One day, while working at the cafe, she met a young man named Kenna. Ikenna was a tall, handsome final year student studying philosophy. He had been coming to the cafe regularly, but on this particular day, he finally approached her. "Hello, I've been coming here quite often. I must say, you're the reason I keep returning," he said with a smile. "I love seeing your beautiful face." Juliet smiled politely and thanked him. When he asked for her number, she hesitated before replying. "I'm sorry, but I don't have the phone." Ikenna was surprised. "Why? Why would a young girl like you not have a phone?" Juliet responded, "Because I do not need it right now. When I have a need for something, I always get it. But for now, I need to set my priorities straight. Ikenna was taken aback. He had never met a girl who spoke with such determination. He was immediately intrigued by her mindset. Can we at least be friends? He asked. She shrugged. I don't have a problem with that, but I won't have much time for you. I'm really busy. Ikenna smiled. That's okay, as long as you make a little time for me. That's enough. After their brief conversation, they parted ways. Over time, Juliet and Ikenna became close friends. Their bond strengthened after Ikenna helped her on one occasion. She needed a particular textbook for her studies but couldn't afford it. She had tried borrowing, but to no avail. When Ikenna found out, he bought the textbook for her. Juliet was beyond grateful for his kindness, and from that moment on, their friendship deepened. Although Ikenna was already in his final year, while Juliet was just starting, their bond remained strong. When Ikenna graduated, he promised to keep in touch, and by then, Juliet had finally gotten a phone, so they remained connected. Years passed, and Juliet successfully completed her studies. She worked hard to finalize her dream of becoming a doctor and graduated at the top of her class. People admired her for her dedication and resilience. After her internship, she was highly sought after, with job offers coming in from various places. Meanwhile, Ikenna had also become very successful, owning a chain of businesses. Despite their busy lives, they stayed in touch, and their friendship blossomed into something deeper. Eventually, Ikenna and Juliet decided to take their relationship to the next level. They got engaged, and soon after, they were married in a grand and beautiful ceremony, attended by friends, families, and well-wishers. Juliet's father was the proudest man that day. He was overjoyed to see his daughter achieve her dreams, despite all the obstacles she had faced. On their wedding night, Ikenna and Juliet moved into their beautiful new home. They had originally planned to spend the night at a hotel, but changed their minds, choosing instead to stay in their home and to officially seal their love. That night, Juliet lost her virginity to the man she truly loved. Everything seemed perfect until in the middle of the night, Juliet suddenly started screaming in her sleep. She kept screaming and thrashing, her voice filled with fear. Ikenna woke up in shock and quickly tried to wake her. Juliet, Juliet, wake up! She continued screaming, oblivious to his presence. After a while, she suddenly stopped, sat up and looked at Ikenna as if nothing had happened. Ikenna was still shaking. He stared at her, his eyes filled with worry. Juliet, what just happened? He asked. You were screaming in your sleep. Juliet looked puzzled. Screaming? I don't remember screaming. You frightened me, Ikenna said. Are you sure you're okay? Juliet shrugged. Of course I'm fine. Maybe you were imagining things. Let's go back to sleep. She turned to the other side of the bed and fell asleep again. But Ikenna remained awake, staring at the ceiling. The next morning, he kept watching her carefully, but she seemed normal. He convinced himself that she might have had a bad dream and let the matter slide. Their wedding festivities continued, and soon they left for their honeymoon at a beautiful resort. The place was breathtaking. There were stunning views, swimming pools, horseback riding, mountain climbing, and so many fun activities. Juliet was excited, and they spent the day laughing, eating, and enjoying their time together. That night, however, it happened again. Just as they had fallen asleep, Juliet suddenly started screaming once more. Ikenna woke up in a panic. Juliet, wake up! Juliet! She kept screaming, her body trembling, but after a while, she stopped and went back to sleep as if nothing had happened. Ikenna was deeply disturbed. He shook her awake. Juliet, what is happening? This is the second night in a row. Juliet rubbed her eyes sleepily. What do you mean? You kept screaming in your sleep. I don't remember it afterwards. Juliet, has this ever happened before? She frowned. I had no idea what you're talking about. I don't scream in my sleep. Ikenna was troubled. He decided to test something. The next day, he told Juliet, they should stay indoors to rest. He wanted to see if exhaustion was causing the episodes. That night, as soon as she fell asleep, it happened again. This time, Ikenna was prepared. He took out his phone and recorded her. The next morning, he showed her the video. Juliet watched in shock. "What is this, Ikenna?" "This is me. Why am I screaming?" "I was hoping you could tell me," he replied. "This is serious, Juliet." They decided to cut their honeymoon short and seek help. Upon their return, they went to their Reverend Father for guidance. After listening to their story, the Reverend Father asked, "Juliet, has anyone ever given you a gift recently? Something unusual?" Juliet thought for a moment and then gasped. "My aunt gave me a bracelet on my wedding day. She said it was a special bracelet passed down in the family." The Reverend Father took the bracelet from her and held it in his hand. His face darkened. "There is something very wrong with this bracelet," he said. He kept the bracelet and asked them to return the next day. That night, for the first time since their wedding, Juliet slept peacefully. The next morning, they returned to the Reverend Father. "This bracelet was meant to initiate you into a coven," he revealed. "If you had worn it for 5 days consecutively, you would have been fully initiated into witchcraft." Juliet was horrified. "What? My aunt gave this to me. How could she?" Juliet was horrified. The Reverend Father sighed deeply. "Yes, your aunt gave it to you because she was instructed to do so. She has been waiting for this moment for years. The coven required that you be married before initiation. If you had worn this bracelet for 5 days consecutively, you would have unknowingly joined them." Juliet's hand trembled as she stared at the bracelet. "I can't believe this. My aunt, the one I love and trust so much." The Reverend Father nodded. "She was chosen to bring you into the fold, just as she was chosen many years ago. The same thing that happened to you happened to her. She was also given this bracelet by her mother, and before she knew it, she was fully initiated." Juliet felt her heart pound in her chest. "But my aunt has always been so kind to me. Why would she want to do this?" The Reverend Father looked at her sadly. It wasn't entirely her choice. Once she was initiated, she had to do the coven's bidding. "Haven't you noticed strange things about her life? Her husband died mysteriously. Her children have never amounted to anything. She has no son. These are all the sacrifices made to the coven." Juliet gasped. "Oh my God, it's true. Her husband died in an accident. Her daughters have always been struggling in life, despite everything she has done for them. And she has never had a male child." Ikenna clenched his fist. "So you're telling me that if I hadn't acted fast, Juliet would have been initiated, and what would have happened to me?" The Reverend Father looked at him gravely. "If Juliet had joined coven, you would have been their next target. Most likely, you would have died mysteriously, just like her aunt's husband." Juliet burst into tears. "My God, this whole time I thought my struggles were just fate or my stepmother. But my aunt has been behind so much of it, hasn't she?" The Reverend Father nodded. "Yes, haven't you noticed that despite her always helping you, always appearing to help you, nothing ever worked out? When she gave you money or gifts, it was because she was trying to spiritually cripple you. She knew your destiny was great and the coven wanted to prevent you from reaching it." Juliet's mind flashed back to several occasions when she had asked her aunt for money while in school. Every time she received money from her, something terrible would happen. Either the money would get stolen, she would suddenly fall ill, or an emergency would arise that would force her to use the money for something else. Tears streamed down her face. "And my father's accident, was she behind that too?" The Reverend Father sighed. "Yes, it was meant to destabilize your family. If he had died, it would have been even better for them. That way, you would have been forced into marriage out of desperation, and that would have given them the perfect opportunity to initiate you." Juliet covered her mouth in shock. "So all of this, my suffering, my struggle, was all orchestrated by her?" The Reverend Father nodded solemnly. "Yes, but thankfully the plan failed. The bracelet is now in my possession, and the generational curse ends here. It will never be passed down again." Juliet and Ikenna fell to their knees, weeping and thanking God for exposing the truth before it was too late. Juliet wiped her tears. Father, how do I tell my mother this? How do I tell her that her own sister is a witch? The Reverend Father replied, You must tell her the truth. If she finds it hard to believe, she can come to me, but it is better she knows so she can protect herself and the rest of the family. Juliet nodded. She knew this revelation would shake her family to the core, but it was necessary. That night, first time since her wedding, she slept peacefully in her husband's arms, free from nightmares, free from screaming. The next day, she went to visit her mother with trembling hands and a heavy heart. She narrated everything the Reverend Father had told her. Mama Juliet sat in silence for a long time, her hands shaking. My own blood sister did this to me and my family, she whispered in disbelief. Tears streamed down Juliet's face. Mama, I know it's hard to believe, but it's true. She had been working against us for years, even Papa's accident. It wasn't an accident at all. It was her doing. Mama Juliet burst into tears. Oh my God, how could she? How could she do this to us after everything? Juliet held her mother's hands. Mama, we must be strong. The Reverend Father said the curse ends here. I will never be initiated and she will never harm us again. Mama Juliet wiped her tears and shook her head. I will never forgive her for this. Juliet sighed. Mama, you don't need to seek revenge. God has already exposed her. And as long as we remain prayerful, she can never hurt us again. Mama Juliet nodded. You are right, my daughter. We will leave her in God's hands. Juliet and her mother hugged tightly. From that day on, Juliet lived her life with even more caution. She and Ikenna built a strong, prayerful home, ensuring that no negative force would ever enter their lives again. Juliet had learned a painful and powerful lesson. Never take gifts from anyone without praying over them. Not all gifts come from a place of love. She was grateful that despite everything, she had escaped the evil plans against her. She was now free, and for the first time in a long time, she could truly say that she was happy. The end. I hope you guys enjoyed this story. Please leave in the comments what you learned about this story. I would love to learn from you too. Kindly like, share the stories to anyone you feel is going to touch, and I'll see you in the next one. Till then, bye. Love you. Thank you so much for watching till the end. Please click on the subscribe button to support us. Turn on the post notification to get notified when I upload a new story. Like, share, and comment your thoughts. Till then, bye.